say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glares of them bursting in air gave proof to the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Hi, this is Kevin McDermott. We're here with Public Perspective on location. We're at Midway Village in Rockford, Illinois, and this afternoon, in fact since this morning, there's been an ongoing recreation of World War I battles and World War I year. So we're here in the Greek contingent, and tell me your name.
Hello, my name is Bill Anthopoulos.
Bill Anthopoulos.
Yes,
Bill?
I'm all the way from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and I've traveled all the way here to display and portray the Greek army of 1919 to 1922 in a lesser-known war that was the
Lesser known to whom?
lesser known to I'd say the general public.
Lesser known
it's
than
not-
World War I as a whole.
Correct. It's not so much of a mainstream war. It's more of an extension of World War I, because as we all know, World War I in the West ended on November 11th of 1918, but in the Middle East, for the Ottomans, it ended on August 10th, 1920, with the signing of the Treaty of Sèvres.
So this would have been the end of the Ottoman Empire at that point.
Correct.
As well, right?
Yes. It was the partitioning of the Ottoman Empire, or its former lands, amongst the victorious allies.
And so it would have been divided into what? Greece, Turkey?
Well, basically you had the French, the British, the Greeks, the Italians, the Armenians that all had a stake in the former Ottoman Empire. So for their participation in World War I, the Greeks were promised concessions in Anatolia.
And where
Smyrna.
exactly is Anatolia?
Anatolia is in present-day Turkey.
Okay.
And back during the Ottoman times, there was a city on the western coast, which is now known as Izmir. But back then it was called Smyrna. And there was a large Greek population. And Prime Minister Eleftherios Venizelos, who was the Prime Minister during World War I, was promised territorial gains at the expense of the Ottomans if they participated in World War I. So they participated on the Salonika front in 1917, 1918. So then when the Ottoman Empire was being partitioned up,
And this would have been after the armistice of 1918 or not till 1920?
this was the armistice of 1918.
Okay.
The Allies decided to draft up the Treaty of Sèvres, and that was to secede certain territories of the former mainland Turkey to Italy, Greece, France, Armenia. So the Brits had a little bit of a problem, because they were on a war footing since 1914. And for them to impose this, they would need a 1 million-man army to occupy Turkey. And the
In order to impose,
to
enforce.
occupy the defeated Ottoman,
Gotcha.
lands. So they were sitting there, oh boy, what do we do now? Because
We don't have a million
we
men.
don't have a million
Yeah.
men, and if we do call them up, they're going to mutiny because they're sick of
War. 4 years of trench warfare.
Right.
Right.
So they offered the Greeks an opportunity to send an army to occupy Smyrna, and with the aim of annexing it in the future. So on May 15th of
Annexing it to Greece.
Correct. On May 15th of 1919, the Greek army landed, and this caused a Turkish nationalist movement by Mustafa Kemal. He was the founder of modern day
Turkey.
Yes. So a revolutionary movement was launched. The Prime Minister Eleftherios Venizelos lost the elections in November of 1920 because he was backed by the major powers. And the Greek king Constantine came back to power. He was detested by the Allies because he was pro-German during World War I. So this gave the Allies an opportunity to clean their bets and say, we're not supporting Greece anymore in this venture. And the king...
So they welched on their deal, essentially.
Right, because their deal was with Prime Minister Venizelos.
Who had been defeated.
Correct. So the Greek king tried to continue the war and to reclaim these lands, which the Greeks had a historical claim to, from the Byzantine times.
Right.
And the king launched a major offensive in 1921 in the summer, and it ended at the Battle of the Sakarya River between August and September 1921. It was a 3-week pitched battle, bled both armies almost dry. The Greeks were the first to blink, and they retreated back to their former lines that they had made.
And this is the era that you're representing here.
Correct.
In your recreation.
Yes.
Okay, so your soldier, the persona you're portraying, would have participated in this battle in 1921?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So there was a stalemate. The Greeks sat on their hands for about a year after, between 1921 and summer of 1922, where Mustafa Kemal launched a massive counterattack on August 26th of 1922, driving the Greek army back all the way to the coast of Smyrna, where the Greek army had to evacuate, leaving its Christian subjects there. There was atrocities, but there was a population exchange thereafter. And
So the Christians were allowed to leave?
Right. There was an exchange between Christian and Muslim.
Right.
And modern day Turkey was born out of that battle.
Which, interestingly, became highly secular under Kemal. And that
Yes.
was part of his
Correct.
idea, was to create a Western type of
Correct.
country.
Yes.
That where government was disengaged from all this religious conflict.
Absolutely. He was a brilliant strategist, brilliant commander. He brought Turkey out of the dark ages and made it what it is. So you got to give him credit. And Ataturk always said, peace at home, peace in the world. So he was a great leader in terms of what he did for the Turks and for
But he was
Turkey.
not an expansionist, really. He was,
No,
he was
not at
reacting.
all. Correct. He was defending his people against Western imperialism. They were looking to enslave them, essentially, right? By this Treaty of Sèvres.
What did the Turks have that the West wanted? Oil? Land?
Yes. It was basically, well, the Ottoman Empire was sitting on vastly rich oil fields, right? So you had the oil fields of Mosul, Saudi Arabia, and we know, all these Arab lands today are very lucrative in oil.
So this conflict we continue to see in the Middle East
Yes.
can be traced back at least as far as World War I and these events that you're describing here.
Correct.
If not prior to that. But as oil became more and more important, and I think that would have been around the beginning of the 20th century, as oil realized that oil was much more valuable than coal as a source of,
Absolutely.
Of energy. So all of this positioning really is the same kind of dynamic we still see playing out in the world today, right?
Right.
So this was one of the early skirmishes in an ongoing battle.
Right. The Greeks were more or less pawns to secure the oil fields of
the Middle
Mosul.
East, right.
And the Western powers would also instigate a lot of the Christian populations of the Ottoman Empire to revolt, which would weaken the Ottoman Empire from within, which is what caused a lot of the animosity between Christian and Muslim, right? Because the West would manipulate the Christians against the Ottomans, which caused that, and they were easy to recruit, right? So they would use religion, nationalism.
Sounds
like
very
they do
familiar
today.
Yes,
Correct.
Yes,
So it's the same
forces.
formula:
Yeah,
divide and rule.
100 years later.
Right.
So let's talk a little bit about your outfit and your preparation. So, what rank would you be in the Greek army?
I am a Greek gendarme,
Which would be
their reserve troops. They were more. They would pretty much go into the villages, look for contraband, weapon stashes that the nationalists were hiding to fight the Greek occupation. Basically, I've got gear that I've got a ruby pistol, bandoliers from the Balkan Wars of 1912, 1913. I have a Mannlicher Schonauer 1903, which was the only model that the Greeks bought. This is the only model that was bought by the Greeks.
But that looks like a rifle that would have been used throughout World War I, right?
Yes. It was. It's a model 1903, so it was used throughout the Balkan Wars and World War I.
Yeah.
We have an Adrienne helmet. This is a French
Take a
make.
look.
Yeah, this is pretty rare. It's a
Now,
Greek Adrienne
What
helmet.
I am intrigued about with these helmets is, first of all, the decoration on it, which you would
Yes.
never see today, and the crest across the top, which, as I guess, is sort of a vestige of times when people fought with swords, because it would deflect the angle of the blade. Is that why this is here?
Well, it's funny that you would say that, because the inspiration of both the Brody and the Adrienne came from the Middle Ages. These are actual designs from the Middle Ages.
Still used.
Still
in World War
used,
I.
but more for shrapnel,
Ah,
more for
yes.
bombs blowing up above you,
Right.
raining down on you. Hence the skirt around.
Right.
But
And
they
it-
weren't made to take any impact of bullets or anything like that.
Right. But even shrapnel would be deflected by this angle.
Correct,
So it
right,
still served a
yeah.
purpose even
Right,
at this point.
yeah.
Right. But a design from the Middle Ages still being
Yeah.
used.
Yes. This is
Hundreds
where
of
they
years
got it.
later.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
So
a
you're
French
not
make.
wearing a helmet, however. You're wearing a cloth hat. Now, would you have gone into battle dressed like this without a helmet?
This is actual. The influence is French. So this is a French kepi that the Greeks had, because they were supplied by the French.
Okay.
In 1917, they were given tons of weapons, uniforms to enter World War I, and they kept it on into the War of 1919 to 22. So yeah, this is a kepi. I've got a 1919 tunic, breeches, puttees, boots. I have a little fighting dagger, which is Ottoman Turkish, a ruby pistol, bandolier, straps, the canteen, which is British, and I have a bread bag here.
A bread bag
Yes.
just for supplies.
Just for
what you
supplies
need.
for food.
Right.
Right.
So let me ask you about you personally as
Yes.
a reenactor.
Yes.
So what got you into this? Why do you do this?
Basically, I'm wearing my grandfather's impression. This is a reproduction suit, but my grandfather is pictured here he's on the right. That's
Okay.
that's him there. So he was a gendarme, and this is him too. So he fought in this war, and when I found these, I was intrigued. And this is what got me interested, because he died when I was 6 years old. So this is my way of trying to get to know him
And understand
better,
what he-
and to
who he
have
was.
some form of a connection with
Sure.
a granddad that I never knew.
Sure.
Yeah.
And in the meanwhile, it teaches you an awful lot about history, doesn't it?
And that's what taught me a ton, because I've read so much. And this war encompasses so many others, previously and after. So you can learn a lot about one war. You can learn about a people. You can learn about a culture. You can learn about history. And if you know about history, you can know a stranger much better. You can understand the stranger much better if you know their history. And this could be a gateway to history, to a nation, to a culture. And that opens doors.
So what doors has it opened for you?
Oh, I've learned a lot about the Middle East. I've learned a lot about the Muslim faith, the culture, the Turkish culture, how the West was, or, the major powers, how they were, how they thought, how they felt.
So does it change your ability to interact with people now that you have this history that you've
Yes,
absorbed?
because I feel that I understand them more, and I'm better able to think critically.
And to be open to their points of view?
Correct, because when you know their history, you know why they behave the way they do. You know why they act the way they do. You know how not to behave in front of them. You know what to say and what not to say.
That's a
So
key
you can
part,
avoid a
yes.
lot of,
Right.
conflict, a lot of uncomfortable moments, but you can make a lot better friends, and more of them.
Well, I'm very happy to have made your friendship. So
Same
thank
here.
you,
Thank you
Mr.
very much.
Anthopoulos,
Yes,
right?
good.
Yeah, I remember that. Got it right.
Awesome.
Okay.
Great. Thanks again.
It's really been a pleasure to,
Thank you
to
very
talk
much.
to you. And
Same here.
I admire the fact that you go and do all this stuff.
Well,
So,
I'm very thankful that you guys took the time to film this.
my pleasure.
All right.
So that's it. We're done here in Rockford. We'll see you soon on Public Perspective. So until next time, I'm Kevin McDermott. Thank you and good night. Okay? Well
Thank you.
done.
All right.
Yeah,
Thanks again. I appreciate
really.
it.
All right, that was cool.
Pretty much it. We just came out here to do our best and to honor the soldiers that fought and died. Both sides were fighting for survival, and that's it.
Your Greek heritage?
Yes,
Both of us.
Yeah.
Okay.
My great grandfather was a radioman in the Greek army.
Yeah.
During
My
that war.
grandfather
During World
was
War II?
Jean d'Arc.
No, in the Greek army in the Greco-Turkish.
Okay.
Years ago.
How about you?
Mine was Jean d'Arc. I'm actually wearing his impression. This is what he wore.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay. All right.